Magic are next. Notable moves include drafting Paolo Banchero at number 1 after everyone and their mother thought that they were going to take Jabari Smith Jr. That was such a fascinating, just looking at the way there was the reporting and Woj backtracking at the last minute, but I digress there. The Magic drafted Caleb Houston at number 32 and then signed him to a 4-year, $8.2 million deal. First 2 years are guaranteed. They re-signed Gary Harris to a 2-year, $26 million deal. The second season is non-guaranteed. Mo Bamba signed a 2-year, $20.6 million deal. The final season is non-guaranteed. They signed Bobo to a 2-year, $4.4 million deal. Guess what? The final season is non-guaranteed. They signed Admiral Schofield and Kevon Harris to 2-way contracts, and they signed Drake Jeffries to an Exhibit 10 deal. Their notable exits, Robin Lopez signed with the Cavs. That was just some really hard-hitting transactional recapping. Grant, what is your grade for the Orlando Magic?
This is a B plus, and it's closer to an A minus than a flat B. But I'll just leave it there. The Banchero decision was, like you said, a surprise. But not just because of Summer League, but also just thinking about like what kind of player he's going to be in theory. I think he actually makes. This isn't a hot take. I think a lot of people think this. He makes sense, especially for a team that. They're young guards, both Suggs, Cole Anthony, even Fultz, throw him in there. I'm not confident that you've got an elite, like on the ball playmaker in any of those guys. I'm just talking about it in like a 2 or 3 year time horizon. I just don't know. So if you can get a significant portion of your offensive initiation from a big wing forward, really, I like the idea of what that opens up for you roster construction wise at other positions. So now you're not stuck just hoping Jalen Suggs learns to make a shot once in a while, or, that Cole Anthony becomes more of an empty calories guy or can finish in 2-point range, all that stuff. So I like the Banchero move. I think it was kind of bold. And so they get extra credit for that. And then just the other stuff, one of the best ways to get a high grade for me is just to have a bunch of non-guarantees. And so the Magic definitely ticked that box 3 times. I like the Harris number. I like the Bamba number even because he really showed that he's far from a bust. Like, this is a quality backup center now. And I think, his profile is unusual. He is going to make some threes. He is going to block shots. If that's your backup 5 for $10 million a year and you're not on the hook really at all beyond this season, great. Just making them non-guarantees instead of player options, like, because all those guys could have justified asking for that, and that would have swung this grade totally the other way. I like that offseason. I don't mind losing Robin Lopez because you've got 2 centers in Carter and Bamba, and you're fine there. I think it's a B plus, but if you make a strong case, I might move it up. Although I don't know where you are on that.
I have an A minus for them, which is, I think people might think that's weird because they were a bad team that didn't do much. I think I had Banchero as my top pick. And I think even if he doesn't pan out, and you alluded to this, they just needed that guy who profiles as the offensive pole star. And that wasn't, I guess in theory, it was never going to be Chet Holmgren. People are trying to scale out. And yes, maybe. And then Jabari Smith Jr. was supposed to be more polished, but after Summer League, it's like, well, he's very clearly more versatile on defense than he is on offense, which isn't like a bad thing by any stretch. Yeah. They went with the guy who was just going to check every single offensive box possible. Like, he could end up being their best passer. And they haven't had that guy in forever. Like, we're talking about like since T-Mac or Grant Hill, who's been the last time they've had like that primary, just like offensive centerpiece that was worth being dubbed such. So I love that they went that route. And then Gary Harris, for anyone who wasn't watching the Magic or wasn't paying close enough attention, had a really good year last season. Shot like 50% on drives. His 3-point shot was back. Solid defense. You're spot on with Mo Bamba. It does feel like I almost went to an A. It still feels like this team skews too far towards having not enough wings because they have Terrence Ross and Jalen Suggs, who are like 2s and swingmen. Even Markelle Fultz, he's bigger for a guard, but he's not a wing. You have Franz Wagner, but I view him and Chuma Okeke as combo forwards more than 2 threes or even a pure 3. Maybe Caleb Houston turns into that for you, but that's like if we're throwing eggs in the basket of Caleb Houston. Gary Harris just a little small. So like Gary Harris or Franz Wagner is their best wing, and I don't think that either qualify as a true wing. To not go more aggressively after that type of player. Again, I didn't really hit them with that hard. I gave them an A minus. And also, when you look at, feels like they have so many bigs. Wendell Carter Jr., that contract is a fucking steal. I have him as just a potential all-star to watch next season because he was so good last year. And look, we don't know when Jonathan Isaac is coming back. He had another setback. Their hope was that he was going to be ready towards the beginning of the season, but we've heard zilch, zip, nada about his timeline. So it all is going to kind of work out. And by the way, I'm not advocating they do this all the time. They were a team that played dual bigs a lot. Bamba and Wendell Carter Jr. played a bunch together. Now you have Banchero into that. So, and when Jonathan Isaac, when he eventually comes back, like they can play big still. So it's not like they're actually overloaded with bigs. I just feel like they're sort of a wing deficit. That being said, I loved what they did this offseason. And it also, I think, showed further commitment to the rebuild where, yes, what could they have done that wouldn't have shown that? But like they didn't go out and they could have had a shit ton of cap space. They didn't sign these long-term contracts. They didn't go after an Anthony Simons or, like even a Colin Sexton or get into the Miles Bridges sweepstakes that don't exist at this point. So I like respect that gradual approach because it's something that they eschewed for so long that I'm just very appreciative of it. And so it was actually a pretty easy A- for me.
Yeah, I think too, there's some upside, or there's definitely upside with both Harris and Bamba as trade chips because, there's going to be a team, everybody, like you said, Harris isn't quite the right size, but he's going to fit anywhere. And you can imagine, look what Dallas gave JaVale McGee because it decided it needed rim protection. Like Bamba's, if there's a playoff team that's like, man, we got to have the option of someone in there just to shut things down around the basket. So I don't know if either of those guys individually is worth a future first at the trade deadline, put protections on it, but like, neither of them, I don't think feature prominently in Orlando's like biggest of big picture thoughts. And I think they're both flippable and the non-guarantees make it even better. So they didn't play the cap space game, but they also kind of did because they're still in position to take back some bad money with a pick and send out, one or two of these guys that isn't a future piece. So I think short of just leaving the cap space open, like say Indiana or San Antonio, this is how a bad team should sort of allocate its room, I think.
And they rolled over their flexibility to just next summer where they could have 55 plus million in cap space again. And look, the other thing they can do, you already mentioned it, because they have those Harris and Bamba, like basically expiring deals. There is an option on the table. If everything works out and all parties involved agree to it, you're taking back bad money attached to other assets too. Or by the way, this is a team because of the type of salaries they now have. And then the pick commitments that they have a future Denver pick. They have a future Bulls pick. They have all their own picks. If they're better than expected and Donovan Mitchell's still floating around out there or something, like they could get involved in that type of deal. I'm not saying they will, but they're just built to go any direction at this point, and even more so than they were last season when we knew they'd already detonated everything. And look, Terrence Ross expiring contract still floating around in there too. So I think this was just not a picture perfect offseason, but the Mavericks are sort of heading in a picture perfect direction because of the flexibility and the optionality that they've afforded themselves.
Yep. Agree.